The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the chemical compound that gained sentience and became Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
All right, so this week we are looking at House of Frankenstein. We're getting close to the end of the Universal series. And this is the introduction of Dracula into the Frankenstein story.
Definitely. And everyone, as always, make sure that you watch these movies before you really listen to the podcast, because we are going to spoil quite a bit.
Absolutely.
All right. Also, I have a confession to make, Anthony.
All right, let's hear it.
So I sounded really confident last week whenever I mentioned that Lionel Atwell was the actor. Turns out that I'm the idiot, and it is, in fact, Lionel Atwill. And he's once again in the Frankenstein series, this time as a totally different character, Inspector Arns.
Last time we talked about that, he kept an upward career trajectory, and now he's been demoted back to a police officer again.
Right, yeah. Now he's not even, I think, even the chief. He's just an inspector. I mean, he's a high-ranking inspector, but he's how the mighty have fallen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this will be Lionel Atwill's penultimate entry into the Frankenstein series. The next entry, House of Dracula, will be his final entrance as, indeed, once again, I believe, a totally different character.
Yes. This one starts out with, you got the Karloff and Chaney get like a big title card together as Karloff returns to the series, so that's like,
but not as the monster.
Not as the monster. I think he got really sick of being the monster, and I think they kind of coaxed him back by saying he could be the mad scientist in this movie, which he's not a Frankenstein. So this is really the first of these movies where there is no Frankenstein family member, like, other
than the monster.
Right, exactly. So, like, again, we keep going back to that, but, like, this movie's called House of Frankenstein, and the Frankenstein in this movie is the monster.
I mean, they do have a house. It did belong to Frankenstein. I mean, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, fair enough. So, yeah, we open up on, there's, like, a little kind of circus wagon. It says Lampini's Chamber of Horror, featuring Dracula. Oh,
right, yeah, the... right on the sign. So, all right, I don't know if you're a big fan of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but this gave me big JoJo vibes as the first scene in The Phantom Blood, which, that this is weeb territory, so hold on for a couple seconds. Let me finish and we can go on. But it's very similar kind of to this, in that one of the main characters' father and parents get into kind of a wreck in their wagon or carriage. And it's on a rainy night. I don't know how much this actually has to do with that reference, but what I'm saying is that it seemed like Hirohiko Araki, the creator of JoJo's, watched this movie and said, "I love this intro, so I'm going to use that as my intro in my comic book series or my manga series."
Could be.
It could be. But yeah, so immediately after Lampini's Chamber of Horrors, featuring the skeleton of Dracula, we zoom in on Neustadt Prison.
Yeah, and so we get Karloff as a disheveled prisoner with like a scraggly beard, and he's got his own hunchback friend, because every mad scientist needs a hunchback sidekick. In this case, his name's Daniel.
Daniel,
which,
yeah.
like everybody in all these movies has had very like German names, and then you just got Daniel.
Yeah, we had Fritz, we had Carl, we did have Igor. No, Daniel. Yeah.
Yep. So you have a police officer, or like I guess a prison guard, getting close to a door, and Karloff reaches through the window and tries to choke the cop.
Right, and all he wants is my chalk. Now, will you give me my chalk? What a great entrance by a villain, by the way.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what he's all about. And also, this guard was not paying attention at all for this to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was a slow choke.
And you definitely get the idea here, like, Karloff, as his, or, his role in the series up to this point has been as the, like, kind of silent, grunting monster, and so he's really just, like, chewing the scenery for all it's worth in this movie. He's playing up the villain, and, he's very vocal in a way that he hasn't had a chance to be in these movies before.
Yeah, he definitely lets his charisma shine. And, of course, the guard literally calls him out as a would-be Frankenstein right from the word go.
Yeah.
He's like, you're going to be this film's replacement Frankenstein, so enjoy that. And, of course, Dr. Gustav Niemann, or they say Nyman several times.
Which, like, they kind of mentioned that he had a brother who worked with Frankenstein, and, like, I kind of, I kind of went back and forth, like, trying to figure out, for a minute even, I was like, was there another doctor in another movie already named Niemann? And there wasn't. But so, canonically, this is supposed to be, he is Fritz's brother from the first movie. So,
okay.
So we kind of find out that Fritz's last name was also Niemann at this point.
Okay, there we go. But it kind of begs the question then: why didn't Dr. Frankenstein enlist Dr. Niemann in his experiments, since they were both of the same mind? Or maybe they didn't want to share the spotlight.
Yeah, it could be.
It seems that way.
Yeah, but it seems like Niemann is in jail for the same kind of stuff that all of our previous mad scientists have been in jail for. Got caught stealing bodies. So there, he's got his the chalk he stole from, or takes from the guard. He's got the prerequisite crazy guy mad scrawls all over the prison walls of his experiments and notes and everything. He's got drawings of skulls and all kinds of equations and everything. And so they're just kind of trapped in jail, and then, as luck would have it, there's a storm and it just breaks the wall of the jail, and they take advantage of the free get out of jail free card, basically.
Right. How fragile is that jail? One strike of lightning, the roof caves in, the wall collapses, it reveals a little catacombs beneath the prison.
Yeah.
And then they're out of there. They just go down there, go through the cavern. Nyman takes Daniel with him, and they just walk out of a little hole in the cave. That's it.
Very convenient.
Yeah, right?
And then they just happen upon Lampini's wagon, and it's stuck in the mud. So they decide to help out, and between Niemann and Daniel and Lampini, they're able to get the wagon wheel loose from the mud and get moving. And then Lampini decides to give them a ride in thanks.
Right, and of course, when you're asked what you've done to be out in this weather, your answer is, of course, not going to be, no, we escaped from jail. It's going to be, I was a merchant held captive by bandits for 3 months.
Yeah. That explains my disheveled appearance.
Yeah, this is 3 months of growth, not 15 years. Don't question it.
And so then their conversation works as the previously on for this movie. You've got Lampini kind of tells the story of Dracula a little bit. Just tells how Dracula was killed with a stake and that he's got the bones now and everything. And then you've got Niemann, who kind of sums up the Frankenstein side of the story, and tells his connection to the story and kind of fills in some gaps there. And then Niemann asks if they can get a ride to Visaria, and Lampini's like, "No, I'm not going to Visaria. And that's where Lampini makes his mistake and his exit from the movie.
Oh yeah, let's not forget though that he's talking about having the actual skeleton of Dracula that he excavated from the Carpathian Mountains.
Yeah, he says he stole the coffin and the dirt to keep the skeleton whole or whatever, but the thing is that the stake is the only thing that's keeping Dracula dead.
Mm-hmm.
So then they ask for a ride, and when he says no, that he won't take them to Visaria because Visaria doesn't have any interest in things of the macabre. They've got enough monster stuff. Yeah. They already have enough monster stuff. They don't need a special little wagon exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
So Neiman and Daniel kill Lampini and take the wagon.
Presumably killing the driver, Herman. I believe they mentioned his name was earlier on in the rainstorm.
Yep. And so then I think from there we cut to the burgomaster and the new inspector, who is, as we mentioned earlier, played by Lionel Atwill, and they are playing chess.
They're kind of discussing some things in the past, and then the daughter of the burgomaster, I believe her name is Rita, being played by Anne Gwynn, approaches, and she wants to go see this brand new exhibit that's come to town, a Professor Lampini's Chamber of Horrors.
Yeah, and she is not taking no for an answer. She the burgomaster's not interested, and neither is her husband necessarily, but she's just kind of like, we're going, and she's just got that like fun, sassy attitude that everybody's just like, sure, we'll go along. Everybody's kind of grumbling, but they're all kind of like pulled by her like magnetism, I guess.
Yeah, she seems. Everyone gives her kind of the cursory. Oh no, that'll be too much for us. And then, of course, like you said, they all capitulate and go along with her anyway. Even the inspector.
Yeah. So then they get to it's the carnival sort of set up, and you got Karloff doing like the whole carnival barker thing. He's telling the crowd about the bones of Dracula, and shows him off and kind of gets in an argument with the burgomaster. He's not so impressed by this whole horror show.
It's odd because he kind of puts on a Arnold Schwarzenegger impression before Arnold Schwarzenegger was, a thing. It is kind of weird that the burgomaster throws that on, but of course, as you mentioned, he starts to recognize Lampini. He's like, "Don't I know you?" Yeah,
and Lampini can't have, or the fake Lampini, Dr. Neiman can't have that. So as soon as the crowd steps away, he goes in and pulls that stake out of Dracula.
This seems like a bad idea. just knowing what I know of the lore, it just seems like a bad. And also, can we take a step back? Just having the stake in the rib cage works. Like, it keeps him dead.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess the idea is the heart wants to grow back, but it can't because there's a stake there. And as soon as the stake's removed, the heart just comes back to life.
We'll go with that. All right, that's what this movie does, at least.
Yeah. But yeah, it's such a dumb idea to be like, me, a mortal human, I can totally, control this, immortal, undead creature. But I guess he thinks, if I bring him back to life, sure, he'll listen to me. He'll appreciate the favor that I've done for him.
Yeah,
and it actually kind of works out for him in this case, surprisingly.
But that's also because he holds that ludicrously large stake above Dracula's heart as he regenerates.
Yeah,
he's like, I'll put it right back. But pretty much they come to an agreement of Dracula will help Neiman as long as Neiman basically keeps Dracula's casket and keeps it nice and warm for him, or at least keeps his homeland soil in it so that he can return every morning before the sun fully rises.
Yeah, and so for Dracula this time we've got John Carradine. Yeah, and I mean, he's great, but he's such a completely different character from Lugosi that it doesn't even feel like the same Dracula. Like, he doesn't have the accent, and, he's got this like mustache and everything. He's still very, aristocratic, but it's a very different vibe for sure.
Yeah, I think it's one that Christopher Lee's going to take up a little bit later, but also kind of dial it back to more of the Transylvanian aspect. Like they're going to keep.
Yeah, Lee kind of finds the sweet spot between the two.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And can we talk about John Carradine basically founding a whole dynasty of actors?
Oh yeah, and it's wild. Like, I mean, we think of these movies as being like, so far in the past, but then like, his children like were in movies that like came out recently, in our lifetime, and I mean, so many great actors from that family.
Yeah, and actually an Imagineer as well. A chief Imagineer.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I believe, let me double check. I think it was his son Christopher. Yes, Christopher Carradine was the VP of Disney Imagineering, and he was an engineer before that.
Interesting.
Yeah, but he also, John Carradine's the father of Bruce Carradine, another actor. David Carradine, which, if you were into martial arts movies in the 70s, which I wasn't alive then, but I've still seen a lot of them, he likes to pop in there. Also, he was in the Kung Fu shows.
And Kill Bill.
Then we also have Keith Carradine, who also made appearances in those shows as well, but he also went on to do a few things, mostly television. And then,
I mostly think of him as Wild Bill Hickok from Deadwood.
Exactly. And then we have Robert Carradine, who played Louis Selznick in the Nerds movies.
Okay.
So, all over the place.
Yeah, for sure. So then we've got, Dracula comes back to life. You get kind of like a little transitional, camera effect scene with like the skeleton turning into him. They come to an agreement that, that Dracula will kind of help out. And so then I think we cut to like the burgomaster and the family are headed home, and I guess, I don't know how they got to the carnival to begin with, but now they don't have a ride, so they managed to hitch a ride with this Baron who is Dracula.
Yeah, this strange Baron Lattis. Who knows where he came from? Oh, Transylvania. That's weird.
And so they invite him in for a drink, and
he apparently does drink wine in this one. For the Dracula joke.
Yeah. And then, he has another drink in a little bit, but he immediately, like, sort of gets everybody on his side. The family seems very drawn into his charisma, and he gives Rita this mysterious ring and starts to seduce her. And, like, she seems immediately under his spell, even though, she's a newlywed.
Right, and of course he doesn't do this while Carl Husband's there. He waits till he's out of the room, and the burgomaster, her grandfather, is passed out half drunk, which I appreciate that they did that.
Yeah, so then Dracula leaves and then immediately comes around, goes into the burgomaster's study, hypnotizes him, sort of.
He says goodnight to everybody, then, like you said, just comes around, hypnotizes him, and then immediately, boom, plastic bat. With the little flappy wings, right?
Yeah, and I don't know why he couldn't just bite him as a person. I don't know he transforms into a bat. You get this kind of weird camera effect where he turns into a silhouette and then shrinks down to a bat, and then it's just the plastic flappy bat that you can get at Spirit Halloween or whatever, and he just flaps over to the unconscious burgomaster and
the silhouette of him, and presumably drinks his blood.
Yeah, and so then we go back to seeing Rita talking to Carl, and that ring has really done a number on her. She immediately starts kind of like rambling this like goth chick nonsense. She's just talking about the darkness and all this. And Carl's like, what is going on here?
Right, she's waxing poetic. She's like, we're going into I want to be in the land between the worlds of the living and the dead. It's like, oh, okay, calm down now. Calm down.
Got Sylvia Plath over here.
Mm-hmm, right.
And then he notices that her ring has the Dracula family crest on it.
Yeah, the one he saw earlier on the casket.
So he goes to get the burgomaster to be like, hey, we got to help Rita. Something weird's going on. But Burgomaster's dead. So that little bat managed to drain a whole person worth of blood.
Yeah, they must have taken a lot of time, right?
Yeah. So, of course, then they got to call the inspector.
While he's sleeping. I mean, that's kind of rude, but I understand. But in the meantime, our friend Dracula uses his mentalism to open the door in Rita's bedroom and starts beckoning her out to him.
And she kind of like walks out in a trance. And then, as you do in these movies, he puts her in a wagon and they, flee on wagon. So you get another fun horse-drawn carriage chase scene.
Yeah, Carl sees this, starts running after them, falls face plants directly into the dirt. And then at that time, Inspector Arns finally appears, which good for him for being that quick to throw on the full suit, get your posse together, and just ride out on horseback.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So they all jump on horses. Carl gets on one, and they pursue the wagon.
Right, exactly.
And then to further, this is like the Fast and the Furious of these movies, because then you see Neiman and Daniel, they're in their wagon, and they happen to see the police chase, and they're like, uh-oh, somebody's after us. So they start fleeing in their wagon. So now
way not to look guilty, by the way.
So you got two wagons on the run, a bunch of guys on horses. It's chaos. And in the high-speed chase, I'm not really sure if they're trying to like unload weight or what the plan is, but Daniel dumps Dracula's coffin out the back of the wagon.
Right. I feel like they just write him off because they see Dracula. They're like, oh, they're after Dracula. Okay. And then they're like, let's just get rid of him and solve this problem for ourselves. So yeah, they drop his casket right out of the back. And poor Dracula, he has the worst luck in the world because immediately, as soon as they drop the casket, the pin on his carriage just pops out.
Yeah.
His horses go in one direction, the carriage goes in another, goes over the side of a hill, once again calling back to my JoJo reference earlier. And they do that's a pretty cool stunt they do where they throw off, I think it might actually just be John Carradine jumped from the carriage as it goes over the side. Sans horses, of course.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah, and he does a little tuck and roll, and then we've got Dracula without a carriage on his own.
And so he rushes over to the casket to see if he can like get into his safe dirt and get into the darkness, but the sun coincidentally just happens to be rising at that moment, and he is reduced to ashes or back to bones. Mm-hmm. And as he turns into bones, the ring just falls off of Rita's finger.
Yeah, and then the spell is broken. Her and Carl can go back to being a happy newlywed couple.
Yeah.
By the way, this is it. This is all the Dracula you get.
Yep, that's done. Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. It's like this movie is kind of actually like two half movies glued together.
It really is.
So you've got like the Neiman and Dracula story, and then once Dracula's gone, then you get the Neiman and the creature and the Wolfman.
Yeah, I think this would be a great anthology series if it was brought back and filmed in a very similar way today. You know, you have the first part of the series being about Dracula and all that, and then of course the second part being about Wolfman and Frankenstein. But in my make-believe series, though, you bring Dracula back at the very end. You know?
Oh yeah, of course.
But that'll happen later. So we'll talk about that later.
So yeah, I mean that pretty much establishes Neiman as like the main character of this story, since he's really Neiman and Daniel are the ones who, exist through the whole story.
Yeah, exactly.
So they escape in the car chase scene, and they, as you do in these movies, they come upon a Romani camp, and there's like a crowd watching. There's like a band playing and a girl dancing, and everybody's having a good time. And Daniel is immediately in love with this dancing girl.
Yeah, we'll find out her name is Ilanka, and she's played by Alina Verdugo. And
yeah, she's really great in this.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the dance, I would think right now it's probably not much to write home about, because I feel like if it were in a film today, it would be much bigger. All of her moves would be much like more sweeping and broad and all that. But I feel like for the time, the dance was probably pretty spectacular, or at least something to write home about.
Yeah, and she's one of the more fleshed out female characters that we get in any of these movies.
Really, yeah.
Other than the daughter of Frankenstein in our previous movies, but yeah, she has like agency and has like wants and desires and stuff. So like she doesn't seem to exist specifically to interact with the male characters quite as much as some of the other women in these stories do.
Right. Even though some of the male characters think that's the case, which
which of course that's as to be expected, especially during that time, but not that we're much better at this point.
Right. And not to spoil anything, but she gets one of the more interesting kills of the movie later on.
Yeah. But before that, we have the cops show up. They instantly accuse the Romani people of thefts in the town and tell them that they need to vacate the area immediately.
Yeah.
And, so of course, my first thought was like, of course, they're going to blame, that's the stereotype. But then in this case, it turns out to be true. Which, is par for the course for this time period again. But in this case, it's the leader of the group that was responsible for the thefts. And we find that out when Ilonka tries to get her share of the money for dancing, and he tries to keep her from it, keep it from her. And she's like, if you don't, give me my cut, I'm going to tell the cops that you're the one who stole everything.
Right. So basically what we're saying is during this segment, just be prepared for that when you're watching it. There's a little bit of a typing going on.
Yeah, and then of course he's got to be the shitty dude, and he knocks her down and tries to attack her.
Pulls out a whip.
Yeah. Then Daniel shows up to the rescue. Obviously if he's fallen in love with this girl, he's not gonna put up with that. So he he knocks the guy down. I don't know if he's named at all, the Romani leader. But yeah, he knocks the guy down, picks up the unconscious Ilonka and puts her in the wagon despite Neiman's protests that he doesn't really want anything to do with her.
Right. Because Neiman's focused on putting the mind of a person inside of a dog at this point. Or, I'm sorry, going back to that, he's trying to make Daniel a perfect body. That's the promise he's made Daniel at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this next scene is where we really see that that's something that Daniel is really, really wanting, because when Ilonka wakes up in the wagon, Daniel's standing outside the window, and they kind of have this really sweet scene. They're it's a little flirty. She's thanking him for saving her, and he's like, you never have to deal with those people again. We'll get you to safety, and your life's going to be so much better. And it feels like they've made this genuine connection. And then
she sees the hump.
Yeah, he opens the door and steps inside, and that the acting in this scene is great because it's really subtle. There's not a lot of spoken stuff, but as soon as she sees him, you could tell her feelings change a little bit, and she is a little less attracted to a hunchback than to the kind man that she thought she was talking to, and he instantly notices that things have shifted.
Right, because he's sensitive about that kind of thing to begin with, right? And first off, by the way, Daniel is a perfectly normal-looking person with a hunchback. There's nothing wrong with the guy. He's actually pretty close to conventionally attractive, especially for the time. And then
and especially compared to all of the previous sidekicks we've seen who've been, seriously disfigured. He just looks like a normal dude with a sack of flour on one shoulder, basically.
Right. And he's even well kept, so he's already got a leg up on Igor, Carl, and Fritz.
Oh yeah.
So, but nope, that hunchback doesn't do it for her, and she's like, no.
Yeah. So then Daniel goes back to Neiman and is like, I need a new body, ASAP. I can't be having this kind of thing happen to me over and over again.
Yeah. And of course, Neiman's kind of, dismisses of that. He's like, yeah, sure. We'll do that. But we've got to get the Frankenstein records. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, so that they get to the ruins where the dam burst.
So is Viseria Frankenstein? Because I feel like those two towns are separate, but are they just close enough that they're like literally kind of within spitting or walking distance of each other?
It seems to be. Like they're like burrows or something almost. Like
right, because you see before they get to the Romani camp, you do see the road sign for Frankenstein 1 kilometer. You know,
yeah.
And it's like, but we're going to Viseria, but we're in Frankenstein. But yeah,
yeah. So I guess when Ludwig fled Frankenstein, he didn't flee far.
No, he didn't. He just hopped over the border. He went to the next county is what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they go into the ruins of the castle, and again, like the last movie, somehow if you go underground around here, it's just like Ice City. It's like a Mario level or something, you know, it's just like normal up on top, and then you go into the cave and everything's frozen, you're slip sliding everywhere. In this case, it's even worse. Like there's just solid ice walls everywhere. The Wolfman's frozen. The creature's frozen.
Yeah, they're both in blocks of ice. Nothing else is sticking out. They're just both in blocks of ice.
Yeah, perfect solid cubes, as of course it would be. Mm-hmm. So somehow, I guess, when the dam burst and flooded, that water rushed in and then immediately froze.
In a block of ice as opposed to a floor, effectively.
Yeah.
Right.
So... And instead of, you know, in the last movie we had him like breaking the ice with a rock, this time they like set up some fires and let it thaw naturally.
Right, something that makes sense a little bit to it.
Yeah. So the Wolfman thaws out first, and like he's the Wolfman, but as soon as he thaws out, he like shifts back and turns into Larry Talbot. Mm-hmm.
And he's not happy about being thawed out at all.
No, he's like, what? I was fine. Like, you should have just left me on ice. It was, you know, it's totally fine. Mm-hmm. But, like, Neiman, like, knows Talbot's story. And I think they kind of use this as a little bit more, like, previously on kind of thing. But, like, somehow Neiman is, like, very aware of all of this story. So it's like he's been sort of almost with us, the viewers, for the past, you know, several movies. He's just been watching. He knows what's up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but of course Neiman has a lot of charisma, so he does convince Larry that he can help him. Just help me find Dr. Frankenstein's records. You know, we'll give you I'll build you a new brain. Build him a new brain, Anthony.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. And that again goes back to, you know, we talked about that, like, brain science gets real hazy in this, but like if you put a new brain in Larry Talbot's body, it's not Larry Talbot anymore, but somehow he's like, okay, sure, that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's kind of nihilistic at this point, and he's like, as long as I'm dead, that's all I care about, you know. As long as the wolf spirit that comes with the pentagram is done, that's great. Sign me up for it.
Yeah. So they pretty quickly find the notes this time. They're in the wall, and it's a totally different notebook than before. It's a much smaller little book this time, or like thinner. So then Neiman asks Talbot if they can. So I think they did they go to Frankenstein to get the notes, because then Neiman wants to go back to Viseria, right?
Right, but they're in Viseria because that's where Ludwig's castle was, because that's where the dam broke, and that's what washed away the castle and covered them in ice.
Right.
So, yes is my answer.
So maybe the castle is on the outskirts, and he wants to go to downtown Viseria.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. The castle is officially in Frankenstein, but maybe they just want to hop that border and go to Viseria.
Yeah, I would like to see a map of where all these movies exactly take place.
I mean, we had it there for a while, but this movie just jumbles it up for us.
Yeah, because they're in the wagon for a little while. Because like Neiman's like, "Hey Talbot, could you drive? Because I need Daniel to help me revive the creature." Mm-hmm. So, but of course, you know, a little earlier when Daniel and Ilonka were flirting, you know, he was like, "You can keep me company while I'm driving." Yeah. So Daniel's not super psyched about not being the driver. And
No.
he has good reason to be, because Alonka decides to keep the driver company like she promised, but the driver's Talbot instead.
Right. And immediately they hit it off.
Oh,
She's like,
yeah.
"Oh, this guy looks very similar to the other guy, except he doesn't have a hump. This is my ticket."
Yeah, but like Daniel's so sweet to her, and like Larry Talbot's kind of a jerk, because
Right.
he's just like, he doesn't want to make any attachments, because he's like, I'm an evil wolf, so I'm either going to kill you or I'm going to finally die. So either way, like, there's no reason that I should be pursuing this relationship.
Right.
So
exactly.
he's just kind of this like sad grump, and she's just enamored still anyway.
Yeah, just because of the missing hump. That's all it is. Anyway, but yes, they do have a little bit of a camp scene right after we have the little meet cute between Larry and Alonka. And immediately Daniel knows what's up. He sees those two flirting. Alonka brings Larry a bunch of flowers. So, Daniel's very upset at this point. And during the conversation, I do want to mention, she literally asked Larry not to bark at her while he was being grumpy. It's like, I know what you did there.
Yeah, that's good. And then so Daniel's like, please, Neiman, let me drive for a little bit. Like, I'm tired of being back here in the wagon. Why? Talbot can help you. And Neiman's like, Talbot's annoying.
Right. He's like, I
tired
want
of
you,
listening to
Daniel.
him.
Yeah, leave him up there with the other incessant one, because Neiman ain't got no time for that. He is focused on the monster. He's focused on reviving it. He's interested in swapping brains and minds around. He's got no need for love.
Yeah. So then they show up at Neiman's lab, which is this sort of like rundown house. Mm-hmm. They get inside, and like everything is covered in dust and cobwebs. And then we have a rare montage. Like these movies don't tend. They have this weird cleaning montage where they're all just like
full on repair montage. They're wiping down this acrylic tube that eventually is going to hold the monster. They're cleaning and sterilizing all the tools that they need. They're just slapping parts together, and it's like, okay, that's wild.
Yeah. So then, like you said, after the cleaning, we cut to the creature being in this weird glass tube. Mm-hmm. And Neiman says they're going to fill it with steam, and that's somehow going to loosen up the skin and muscles and make him easier to revive.
Yeah, because at this point Neiman says several times that the monster's skin tissue, is desiccated. So of course they've got to give him a nice little steam facial, get him going, make sure that he's ready for his electricity bath that he's going to get later, right?
Yeah, and why is he dried out? He's been in ice for a while.
I don't know. What we're saying is this movie is a lovely mess. But but immediately after that, Daniel comes to Neiman saying, I want Talbot's body. He's not going to need it. But Neiman, of course, is like, listen, we'll talk about it later at this point. We got to go back into this area because we've got some people we've got to meet.
Yeah, so he just like kidnaps these two dudes,
Strauss and Ullman.
Yeah, who we find out are the people sort of responsible for putting him in jail.
Mm-hmm. Strauss was actually kind of his Fritz. So he was does he literally call him a henchman?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So Strauss was Neiman's henchman, but Ullman apparently got Strauss to turn on his master, and they put him away for 15 years for stealing that body.
And so then Neiman kind of goes into his plan, and he's playing like musical chairs with brains. Mm-hmm. Like he wants Strauss going into the creature's body, right? Mm-hmm. And then
the creature going into Larry's.
The creature's brain going into Talbot's body. Mm-hmm. Talbot's brain going into.
I don't know. I think they were going to just throw the brain away.
I thought they were going to put Talbot in the other kidnapped guy.
Oh, you're right. He did threaten him with that. Okay, yeah.
So, like, he was like, I'm going to make you be a werewolf for the rest of your life.
Right.
Which, again, I'm not sure, because I think
is that how that works?
He's got the mark of the pentagram from a bite on his chest, right, or his hand. Yeah. But how that translates to his brain, like, is it the brain or the body that has the werewolf curse? It's unclear.
Right. I honestly think at this point Neiman just wants to see what'll happen. He's not 100% certain. He just wants to do science.
Yeah, he's definitely like the most stereotypical mad scientist. Like all the other ones, they had a sort of plan about what they wanting to do, but he's definitely just like, let's just swap these around and see what happens.
Or at the very least, they wanted to see, they were like, this Frankenstein guy, he made this thing. Why don't we just keep it going? Seems pretty cool. Nothing bad could happen here. But yeah, like you said, Neiman is like, nope, let's do mad science.
And so then, we got Ilonka is looking for Talbot, and that's when Daniel spills the beans and tells her that Talbot is a werewolf. And so then they do a little duet and recite the Wolfman poem again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And she immediately like takes off running into the woods.
Right, because in her mind, he's just messing with her because, he thinks, or she knows he's jealous.
Yeah.
So she says to Daniel, "Oh, you're just being jealous. I'm going to go find out I'm going to talk to Lawrence or Larry."
And then we get this great scene where Daniel is upset and he just starts whipping the unconscious creature's body.
Right.
Because he's like, this is all your fault that I can't get Talbot's body and win over Ilonka.
Well, it felt like a callback to the very first movie where Fritz just beats the monster for no reason other than he can, right?
Yeah. And in this case, he kind of has a reason, even though it's a very tenuous reason. But like in his mind, if the creature wasn't around, then maybe Neiman would let him have Talbot's body.
Right, which probably is not the case, but who knows?
Yeah.
But of course, it's a night of a full moon.
Yeah. So then we get the Wolfman running through the forest, and
I will say this is one of the cooler shots because they zoom in on his footprints because he's barefoot at this point. So it starts off human footprint, werewolf footprint, and then boom, the Wolfman.
Yeah, and it's funny because, rather than doing the whole transformation scene that we've seen so many times now, this probably was way easier to do, but it's way cooler. It's way more effective. It's really chilling to just see those footprints change.
Right.
And then, just to see the Wolfman. And I think, we just see the Wolfman, and then we immediately cut to a pub, and the villagers are talking, and they're saying that there are 3 missing men. Yeah. And, we know of the 2 that Neiman took. So then the third body, or the third missing person, is found and is dead.
His throat mysteriously ripped out.
Yeah, and again, like in last movie where the villagers know what's up way better than the authorities, they're immediately like, a werewolf did this. we gotta form a mob, and then we gotta go find the werewolf.
Mm-hmm. But of course, the mayor doesn't want to let all this out because this would ruin the town's image. Even though we've had incidents with revived corpses in the past and mad scientists. Twice now, at least.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 times.
Yeah. So then we get Ilonka and Talbot. Talbot's back to being a human. We're the next day. And he admits, yes, he's a werewolf, and she wants to help him, but he's afraid that he'll kill her.
Right. But then right away they smooch.
Yeah, and we get this I don't, it's been a while since I watched the original Wolfman movie, and I don't know if this is the lore but he says that, he must be killed by a silver bullet, and she says, fired by one who loves him enough to understand. Mm-hmm. And, the sort of standard lore is just silver will kill a werewolf. But now we have this extra layer of that the silver has to be, there has to be intention there from someone who wants to free them from the curse.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the thing in the first Wolfman movie because his father, who eventually does find out he is the Wolfman, does kill him.
Yeah. So and then this is such a weird scene because you have the scene where the line, he must be killed by a silver bullet fired by one who loves him enough to understand. Right. And then the very next scene, seconds later,
she just makes a silver bullet. She's like, I'm ready.
Yeah, she's making a silver bullet, and they just have that same dialogue repeated, as if you need to be reminded of this thing that happened 15 seconds ago.
Right.
But yeah, so she's clearly took their conversation to heart and is making the bullet at least.
Right, and I guess she learned some smithing along the way because she busts out the hammer on the anvil. She forges it right into a bullet, and she gets ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess those Romani people, they are resourceful, having to live out, on the go all the time.
Yeah, it makes sense, I guess. All right, but then we have Daniel and Neiman preparing the generator and the turbines. They're getting ready to do more science!
And I swear, everyone, this never gets old to me. They just, it's just a bunch of mechanical looking stuff that spins and whirs, and there's sparks and little flashing lights, and every time I'm just, I'm a little kid. Like, the shiny stuff gets my attention every time.
I swear they know what gets our lizard brain to tick, and they go for it.
Yep. And so then Talbot comes in, and he's, still trying to insist that he be the priority rather than the creature.
Yeah, he just wants to hurry up and die, right?
Yeah, so he kind of gets in a fight with Neiman.
Electricity is coursing through the monster at this point, and literally Larry is holding Neiman's body against this monster while electricity is coursing through them. Nothing happens to these guys, by the way. It's just this little fight, and then they're fine. I mean, I feel like basically they should have been electrocuted at that moment, and the movie should have ended right there.
Oh yeah,
right. I mean, because they're in the what? How many megawatts? I don't know if that's actually lethal. I'm trying to remember if it's watts or amps that get you. But I feel like there was enough going through the monster that it should have been the end of the movie, at least for Neiman.
Oh yeah, you would think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, instead we get a scene of the mob is outside the castle. They notice that there are lights at Neiman's home, and they're like, "That's suspicious. Mm-hmm. We should look into that."
Right, but of course the full moon shines.
Yeah, of course. So Talbot is locked in his room, and Ilonka's outside, "Please let me come in." And he's like, "No, I'm about to wolf out here." And he does. So he breaks out the window, and she looks at him through this little peephole thing, and thinks about shooting him, but then she just doesn't have the heart to do it.
So she runs off, and then immediately he springs out the door and chases down. And I'm thinking that he's going to kill her right here because he grabs her, and it looks like he's biting into her neck. But then all of a sudden, pop! The gun goes off.
Yep. So yeah, he falls to the ground and turns into a human, and then you see that she has been injured as well, and they kind of lay there together and die.
Mm-hmm. At this point, Daniel comes upon their bodies and says, "Ilonka, my love." And well, he doesn't say that. He actually just comes over, picks her. I'm making it more romantic than it needs to be. He just comes over, picks her up, walks her into Neiman's lab, and he's basically like, "Bring her back or switch me over," or and he's yelling at Neiman at this point. And
yeah.
Neiman's like, "I'm not going to do that. I'm going to revive the monster regardless of what you want." And at that point, Daniel is tired. He's been made so many promises that Neiman has not lived up to. So he attacks and starts choking Neiman, which upsets the monster.
Yes. The monster, when he is loyal, is very loyal. And I guess he has an instant loyalty to Neiman. So he immediately just chucks Daniel out a second-story window.
Right. No thought. Picks him up, throws him out the window. Defenestration. That's it. You have the almost Wilhelm scream as he's sliding down the roof, then to presumably to his death.
Yep. And then the mob breaks into the house, but the creature picks up Neiman, and he, Neiman is kind of unconscious or sort of half dazed, sort of from being strangled, and the creature kind of drags him out and gets past the mob. And I think we talked in the very first movie about seeing Karloff as the creature trying to carry Dr. Frankenstein, and how they kind of had to cheat a little bit to make it work because it was just too much. But Glenn Strange, we haven't really, Glenn Strange as the creature has not really been in the movie much until this moment, but he pretty convincingly is dragging Karloff around.
He has him underarm.
Yeah, he's got like basically like a rag doll, but it's really
Karloff.
him. I think it's not like a dummy.
Yeah.
Glenn Strange for being in this as short a time as he is, like I think he's probably my second favorite of the Universal creatures. Like behind Karloff, of course, but I think he brings something to it that really works, and I think we get to see a little bit more of that in the next movie. But
yeah, I'll have to agree with you, because like Lon Chaney Jr., he was fine as the monster or the creature. Bela Lugosi was not. So yes, I would be more than happy to give Mr. Strange, or did he ever become a doctor? Anyway, you can cut that joke. But no, I mean he is definitely a solid number 2.
Yeah. So yeah, they like the creature is kind of trying to rescue his savior, and they kind of go into the woods, and the mob is like, well, let's set fire to the marsh grass and we'll force them into the swamp. Like
these are the second most careless villagers behind what was his name, Vazik from the previous movie. Like they don't care. They're like, we're going to burn him. And they threaten him with a torch, and then immediately they're just like, we're going to commit an ecological disaster and just set the entire marsh on fire. And of course, what does it do? It scares.
Sure enough, it works. Yeah, the creature goes like running into quicksand.
Right, Neiman's screaming that out. Don't run this way. There's quicksand over here.
And they like immediately go under and drown.
Right. Oh, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, like this one was like, you thought the last movie was abrupt?
Nope.
Like they're fleeing, they're up to their necks in quicksand, and they're gone within like 10 seconds.
Well, yeah, it's like a shot of them at the waist, then they go back to the villagers, then they're up to their neck, then they go back to the villagers, then they're underwater or under quicksand at that point.
Yeah, it's really abrupt. And like at least in the last movie we did have, the doctor and Elizabeth Frankenstein who escape, and watched. But in this movie, like literally everybody's dead. Like,
yeah, no one makes it out of this one alive.
Yeah, I mean you got Ilonka killed by Talbot, Talbot killed by Ilonka, Daniel killed by the creature, and then the creature and Neiman killed by the villagers. Killed by the creature with an assist from the villagers.
Exactly.
It's a very abrupt ending. It's really funny that like we've had this build where like there've been all these people toasting to the House of Frankenstein, over the course of these movies, and like we finally like get the movie The House of Frankenstein, and we don't have anybody with the actual last name Frankenstein. And then by the end of the movie,
everyone's
dead. There is no House of Frankenstein. Like the multiple actual homes are all destroyed. And we were in Neiman's actual house for more of the movie than any of the Frankenstein estates.
Right, and apparently in the case of Ludwig's house, destroyed multiple times. So. Yeah,
this was one of the more silly entries in the series, I would say. As I'm sure listeners would notice, there were more inconsistencies. There was a lot more where we were confused because I'd like to think that we were paying pretty good attention, and that it was just that the story was so chaotic that it was hard not to be a little confused about what was going on at certain points.
Right. I really felt that we did have a handle on this, and we were like, okay, the Saria's here, Frankenstein's here, they're close, but in this movie they're kind of the same thing and they're overlapping at points.
And they're also far away in that one scene where we need them to be in a wagon for a while.
Yeah. They're far enough away that you'll be in a wagon for a while, but close enough that you could walk.
I guess they got stuck in rush hour traffic this time.
Yeah, rush hour wagon traffic. Yeah, so that's it for House of Frankenstein. Next week we're going to be following up with House of Dracula.
Yes. And so, obviously, as the title indicates, we'll see the return of Dracula in this movie. But, also we'll see the return of Frankenstein.
Yeah, and hopefully there will be more of an interaction than just the first half dedicated to one of the creatures and the second half dedicated to two. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that one, so I'm interested to see how it all plays out.
Yep. Once again, if you haven't seen these movies, definitely check it out before you listen to the podcast. Otherwise, you're just doing yourself a disservice, because even though these movies are 70 years old at this point.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're still interesting, and they're still fun to watch.
Yeah. Like even this one that was kind of a mess is a lot of fun.
Exactly.
Like Eric said, next week we will be watching House of Dracula. So catch up on that in the meantime. And
to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.